My sister didn't invite me to her wedding because I'm adopted, yet my parents are pressuring me to grow up and help pay off her wedding debts. That's not happening. My name is Sydney, I'm 27 years old, and I've built a happy, independent life with my fiancé, Luke. It's a life I've created through hard work and his unwavering support. You might be wondering, what about your family? Well, my relationship with them has always been complicated. It's the reason I'm sharing my story here. To give you some context, I've never truly felt like I belonged in my family. I was adopted by the Hensons because they couldn't have children, but it always felt like I was there to fill a void, not because they loved me for who I was. Don't get me wrong, I'm grateful for the life they gave me. It was better than what I would have had in the orphanage. But when you really look at it, the emotional neglect made it not much different. At first, things were okay. I wasn't spoiled, but I was loved, and that was enough for me. I felt safe and appreciated, something I didn't have in the orphanage. But when I was about 4 years old, everything changed. My mom got pregnant, a miracle they'd never expected. From the moment my sister Janice was born, the dynamics in our home shifted entirely. It was like I disappeared overnight. Suddenly, they were focused solely on Janice. I was happy to be a big sister, but their enthusiasm for her arrival made me feel unimportant. They didn't say it outright, but their actions spoke volumes. I was no longer wanted. It became clear that I'd only been a placeholder until their biological child came along. I tried hard to keep things the way they used to be. I wanted to stay close to them, but the harder I tried, the more they pushed me away. They still took care of me financially, but it was out of obligation, not love. And the emotional neglect? It left deep scars that I've carried into adulthood. Even Janice, who I loved as my sister, treated me like a stranger. As she grew up, it became clear she didn't see me as part of the family. It was like I didn't exist. By the time I was a teenager, I started distancing myself. It was easier than constantly trying to gain their love and attention. I spent more time with friends or alone because I knew I wasn't going to get the emotional connection I craved at home. Sometimes, I even thought it might have been better if they hadn't adopted me at all. The pain of being ignored by the people who were supposed to love me hurt more than having no family at all. When I turned 18, I moved out and started my own life. I kept some ties with them, I'd visit for holidays and the occasional check-in, but I made sure to protect myself emotionally. Over time, I built a life I'm proud of with Luke, my anchor in all of this. He's shown me what a real, loving family feels like. Fast forward to now, and Janice recently got engaged to her fiancé, Peter. Suddenly, my parents began reaching out, asking me to help with her wedding preparations, and even chip in financially. They're making it sound like it's a family affair where my presence is crucial. Janice herself hasn't said much, but my parents are pushing hard. The irony isn't lost on me. After years of making me feel like an outsider, they now want me involved in one of the most important days of Janice's life. We've barely spoken as adults, and now I'm expected to act like the past never happened? It feels like a cruel joke. Part of me wonders if this is Janice's way of extending an olive branch. Maybe this is her attempt at building a relationship, even if it's clumsy and unspoken. A tiny part of me longs for the family I always wanted. Maybe this could be the first step. On the other hand, I've spent years trying to heal from the hurt they caused. Getting involved could just reopen old wounds. Luke thinks it's entirely my decision. He says that if I want to try and reconnect, he'll support me, but I should protect my peace above all else. I'm torn, and I'm looking for advice. Should I take this as an opportunity to mend things with my family, or should I keep my distance and focus on the life I've built? I'll update once I decide. Update 1. A few weeks have passed since my first post, and I wish I could say things turned out differently. Unfortunately, I've realized I was far too optimistic. Right now, I'm sitting here frustrated, venting to strangers, and feeling like a fool. Looking back, I don't even know why I allowed myself to get pulled back into the mess of my family. Deep down, I guess I wanted to believe that they had finally changed, that they cared about me and wanted to mend things. Spoiler alert, they didn't. After posting here, I spent days reading your comments and mulling over what to do. Many of you encouraged me to give it a chance and see if they were being sincere, while others were brutally honest, calling me naive for even considering it. I wish I had listened to those of you in the second group. As you've probably guessed, I decided to help. Against my better judgment, I thought this could be an opportunity to repair my relationship with my family. I wasn't expecting miracles, but I figured if they were reaching out, it must mean they were at least trying. I couldn't have been more wrong. Here's what happened. When I told my parents I'd help with the wedding, they were surprisingly kind, more attentive than they'd ever been in my life. My mom even hugged me, something I couldn't remember happening in years. It was such a small gesture, but it caught me off guard. For someone who spent years feeling invisible, that hug hit me harder than I expected. I let my guard down, thinking they were finally making an effort. As the weeks went on, I even started to bond with Janice in a way I never had before. She seemed genuine, and for the first time, I felt like she saw me as her sister. It felt good. But then things took a strange turn. Janice began asking me for money, first small amounts for decorations or deposits, and then bigger amounts for urgent wedding expenses. She always reassured me that it was temporary and she'd pay me back soon. I had my doubts, but I ignored them. I wanted to believe her. I wanted to believe this was a chance for us to finally build a real relationship. So, I helped. Financially, it wasn't a big deal for me. I've worked hard and I'm in a good place. Emotionally, though, I couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't quite right. Still, I convinced myself that I was doing the right thing. Then everything came crashing down. After the wedding preparations were nearly complete, Janice dropped a bombshell: I wasn't invited to the wedding. She told me it was going to be blood family only, and since I'm adopted, it wouldn't be appropriate for me to attend. I was stunned. For a moment, I thought I'd misheard her. I'd spent weeks helping her plan this wedding and poured my own money into it, only for her to tell me I wasn't welcome. Her words hit me like a brick wall. All the insecurities I'd tried to bury over the years came rushing back. It was like being told, once again, that I didn't belong. In that moment, it became painfully clear, they hadn't reached out to me because they wanted me back in their lives. They just wanted to use me. And now that I'd served my purpose, they were discarding me, just like they always had. I didn't say anything to Janice or my parents. I just walked out. I was furious, at them for treating me this way, but also at myself for believing things could ever change. I let my guard down, and they took advantage of me. Again. This time, though, I'm done. Done being the forgotten one, the outsider they only remember when they need something. But I'm not just walking away, I have a plan. They think they can treat me like garbage and move on with their lives? They're in for a surprise. I'll update you once I've put my plan into action. For now, I need to focus on getting my emotions in check and making sure they don't use me again. Update 2. Hi, it's Sydney again. It's been a few days since my last update, and let's just say things have taken an interesting turn. Or rather, karma decided to make an appearance. The wedding happened a few days ago, and my phone hasn't stopped ringing since. Unsurprisingly, it's my parents. But no, they're not calling to apologize or admit they were wrong. Instead, they're begging me to help Janice, who is now drowning in debt. And somehow, they're trying to blame me for it. Remember how I mentioned I had a plan after the whole blood family only fiasco? Well, I followed through. After taking some time to calm down, I made the decision to cancel every reservation I had made for the wedding. Every single one. I pulled back all the deposits I'd paid and stopped any payments still pending. Some of the money was refunded to me, though not all. But honestly, I didn't care. That money was a small price to pay to make sure they understood they couldn't use me without consequences. Once the cancellations went through, the wedding plans began to fall apart. Janice and my parents scrambled to fix everything last minute. With no time to make proper arrangements, Janice ended up having to pay significantly more than I originally had for things like the venue, catering, and decorations. Desperate to salvage her perfect day, she took out a massive loan to cover the costs. The result? The wedding was a total disaster. Sure, they managed to throw something together, but it was a far cry from the beautiful event I had originally planned and financed. From what I've heard, everything was chaotic and poorly organized, and Janice was embarrassed in front of her guests. But hey, at least she got married, right? Except now, she's drowning in debt. And that's where my parents come in. They've been calling me non-stop, trying to guilt-trip me into helping her again. They keep saying, "You're her sister, and it's your responsibility to help her out of this mess." Really? Where was that sentiment when Janice told me I wasn't welcome at her wedding because I'm adopted? Funny how my responsibility as her sister only seems to matter when they want something from me. They even had the nerve to tell me I should let go of the past and be the bigger person. I actually laughed when they said that. I told them flat out, Janice made her choices, and now she has to live with the consequences. If you're so concerned, maybe you should ask a blood relative for help. Then I hung up. Honestly, standing up for myself feels incredible. For so long, I let my family's treatment of me dictate my self-worth, but not anymore. They can deal with the mess they created. I've worked hard to build a life for myself, and I'm not about to let their toxic behavior drag me down again. So, here I am, enjoying some much-needed peace with my fiancé, Luke. Aside from the constant ringing of my phone, thankfully, there's a block button for that. I feel a sense of closure I've never had before. For the first time, I'm putting myself first, and it feels amazing. Thank you to everyone who encouraged me to stand my ground. Your support has been a lifesaver. I think this might actually be the end of my story, though, knowing my family, who knows. Update 3. Just when I thought I was done with this mess, here I am again. I honestly didn't expect to write another update, but my sister Janice managed to stoop to a new low I didn't think was possible. After everything that's happened, I figured she'd leave me alone, but no, she had other plans. When I refused to help her with her debts, Janice apparently lost it. Instead of taking responsibility for her own actions, she decided to come after me in the most twisted way imaginable. What did she do? She tried to sabotage my relationship with Luke, my fiancé, the one good, stable thing in my life. Here's what happened. A few days after I told her no, Janice sent Luke a series of fake photos claiming she'd caught me cheating on him. She went as far as pretending to be the concerned sister, messaging him directly to apologize for my supposed behavior and saying she was ashamed to be related to me. Can you imagine? She thought she could destroy my relationship just to get back at me. Thankfully, Luke knows me better than anyone. He saw right through her pathetic attempt and immediately told me about it. I was furious, not just because she tried to hurt me, but because she had the audacity to drag Luke into her drama. If Janice thought she could mess with my life without consequences, she couldn't have been more wrong. Here's the thing, during the wedding planning, I saw something that I'd kept to myself, until now. I witnessed Janice kissing another man. Yes, she was cheating on her fiancé, Peter. At the time, I didn't say anything because I didn't want to get involved in her personal life. But after her stunt with Luke, all bets were off. If she wanted to play dirty, I wasn't going to hold back. So, I sent the photos of her infidelity to Peter, along with a detailed explanation of when and where I saw it happen. To say Peter was shocked would be an understatement. By the end of the day, Janice was out of the house, and Peter had filed for divorce, or annulment, I'm not sure which. Their marriage was over before it had even begun. I'm not proud of what I did, but Janice left me no choice. She tried to destroy my happiness, and I wasn't about to sit back and let it happen. She started this war, and I finished it. As for Janice? She's a complete mess. With her marriage over and her debts piling up, she tried to go crawling back to our parents. But even they wouldn't take her in. They know her financial problems would become their responsibility, and they're not willing to deal with it. So now, she's on her own. I don't know where Janice is now, and frankly, I don't care. She's burned every bridge she had, and she has no one to blame but herself. I used to feel sorry for her, but not anymore. She's made her choices, and now she has to live with the consequences. For the first time in my life, I feel free. Free from the toxic cycle my family always dragged me into. Free to focus on my own happiness. And free to look forward to my future with Luke, the person who has stood by me through all of this. Update 4. Just when I thought things couldn't get more ridiculous, Janice has outdone herself. While I've moved on and started enjoying the peace I've fought so hard to find, Janice has decided to drag our parents into her mess. This time, instead of targeting me, she's gone after them, and in a way that's as absurd as it is frustrating. After her marriage ended and she realized just how deep in debt she was, Janice panicked. Without her husband or parents to bail her out, she's been forced to face a reality she's never prepared for. She doesn't have a job, and for years, she's relied on others to take care of everything for her. Now that she's on her own, she's struggling to cope. Instead of taking responsibility, though, Janice decided to blame our parents for her financial problems. And, if you can believe it, she's suing them. Yes, you read that right, my sister is taking our parents to court. Her reasoning? She claims they should have paid for her entire wedding because, as her biological parents, it was their duty to make her happy. According to Janice, because they had her after years of trying to conceive, they're somehow obligated to ensure her happiness, specifically by covering all of her wedding expenses. She argues that they forced her to take out loans for the wedding and are therefore responsible for her debt. I know how ridiculous this sounds. I can only imagine the judge's reaction when they see her case. If I could be a fly on the wall during that hearing, I'd probably laugh at how absurd it all is. Let's be real, Janice wanted an extravagant wedding and made the choice to spend beyond her means. If she didn't want to end up in debt, she should have planned smarter. And, of course, none of this would have been an issue if she hadn't cheated on her husband and destroyed her own marriage. But in Janice's world, everyone else is to blame for her mistakes. Here's where it gets even more ridiculous. Not only is she suing them for the cost of the wedding, but she's also pushing for them to remove me from their will. The idea is laughable. I couldn't care less about the will or any inheritance. I've built my own life and don't need anything from my parents. Janice can have it all, for all I care. Watching this all unfold from a distance is like witnessing a soap opera you never asked to be part of. Janice is spiraling out of control, and instead of fixing her own problems, she's dragging everyone around her into the chaos. Thankfully, I'm far enough removed now to not get sucked into it. Edit: for those curious, the lawsuit went exactly as you'd expect, it was dismissed almost immediately. The judge didn't even entertain her arguments, and now Janice is facing even more debt from her lawyer's fees. She's officially on her own, and honestly, that's exactly where she belongs. For the first time, I'm truly grateful I've distanced myself from this circus. My life is quieter, calmer, and so much happier without the constant drama. My fiancé, Luke, and I are focusing on our future together, and I couldn't be more at peace. Thank you for watching the video, subscribe and turn on notifications to be the first to have radish and real stories with you. Have a great day.